Hey y'all, good afternoon. I'm on my lunch break, so this one's definitely going to be short. But I wanted to share the beauty of the scriptures that we read. And yesterday I didn't get a chance to do a reflection video, but I really was touched and continue to be touched by the subject of forgiveness through the scriptures that we see, not just from God, but how He uses certain circumstances and people to reveal the true meaning of forgiveness, and that, forgiveness not being just an event or just simply something that we do because we're Christians, but because that's really the example that Christ has already given to us. But in scripture here in the Old Testament, before Christ comes into the picture, we see forgiveness embodied. And so it's just beautiful to me because God has been dealing with me particularly with forgiveness for a couple of years now. I thought I knew what forgiveness was until I really had to relinquish the right to be angry and relinquish the right to hold something against somebody, and really embody the love of God. And so the reality is that I'm touched by this. So yesterday we got to talk about Jacob and Esau, and how Esau forgave his brother. So after years of not being able to see each other, they come together, they get together, and it's just a beautiful picture of forgiveness embodied. And so now again today, this morning, we finished reading we're into chapter 45 now, where Joseph finally reveals himself to his brothers. Now this is years, Sean talked about, the idea of God not forgetting about them, about Joseph, and even in prison where he did not belong, he didn't deserve to be in prison, but still and yet he is here in prison and having to deal with all of this stuff. And he gets a hope that he might be getting out when the cupbearer is there, and he reveals to them the dream. And so he's like, maybe this is my chance of getting out of jail. But then for another 2 years, he's still in prison. And then the cupbearer remembers him and says, oh, here he is. So long story short, Joseph now, after being through slavery, after being put into prison, after being through so many different things, he finally now is second in command to Pharaoh, and he is leading the people of God that are now going through. Egypt is going through a huge famine. Everywhere there's a huge famine, but God gave him the power to be able to strategize on how to remain out of the famine, him, his household, but now also his own family, which they don't know. The point is, I want to go back to chapter 43, verse 29 through 31, which is really what touched me and moved me. And it says, as he looked about and saw his brother Benjamin, his own mother's son, he asked, is this your youngest brother, the one you told me about? And he said, God be gracious to you, my son. Deeply moved at the sight of his brother, Joseph hurried out and looked for a place to weep. He went into his private room and wept there. After he had washed his face, he came out and, controlling himself, said, serve the food. So I want to pause right there, because oftentimes I think when we think about forgiveness, we think that we no longer feel, or we think that, the human part of us doesn't go through anything. But here we see Joseph weeping. He is weeping at the sight of his younger brother, who he had not seen for years. And we see the humanness of Joseph. He is literally weeping, crying. He is, he's like reliving everything. He's rethinking about everything that has happened, everything that his brothers had put him through, that he, but at the same time, he is so grateful to be able to see them once again. So he doesn't go to his grave without seeing his family, without reconciling. And so, but the point is that right now, he's not thinking about reconciliation. Right now, he's just feeling. He is in his moment, he is in his emotions, and he's just trying to pull himself together to get through this. So he says, serve them the food. So they go, they serve them the food. Now they're in separate places because the Egyptians were not allowed to eat with the Hebrews because it was detestable to them, etc. The point is, they're in separate rooms, and Joseph is like, trying to get himself together. Finally, chapter 45, we see that he reveals himself to his brothers. And so here it says, then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, have everyone leave my presence. So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still living? But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, come close to me. When they had done so, he said, I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now, there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years, there will be no plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. Verse 8, so then it was not you who sent me here, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household, and ruler of all Egypt. And so I want to stop right there just to think about the reality that, it was his perspective that changed. Joseph didn't see it as, you guys betrayed me, you sold me into slavery, and I'm angry with you about it. He went through the entire process, and while he was in the process, it did not make sense. While he was, being sold and in prison, it didn't make sense. But it was now that he is ruler of Egypt that it all comes clear to him, like, wow, God sent me ahead of you. So while you thought that you were selling me into slavery, and while you thought it was the enemy, it was God sending me ahead, because he knew he was foreshadowing. He knew already. He had a foresight that this was getting ready to happen in Egypt, and so I needed to be in place in order for me to save my family. So oftentimes we think about the things that we go through and the things that have been happening in our lives, and we get angry at people. But God is calling us to change our perspective about what is happening to us. Instead of seeing it as this person did so much wrong to me and I hate them for it and I'm angry about it, it's like, wow, God, you preserved me and sent me ahead so that I may be able to be the open door for the people that try to shut it down. And that's the beauty of forgiveness. What God showed me is forgiveness is not just a word that we use in Christianity. It's not just a word that we use to check off our list. I forgave that person. Forgiveness is being human, feeling, knowing like these people did me wrong, but also relinquishing the right to be angry, relinquishing the right to hold against them something that God allowed to happen in order for him to be in position and in place during the time of famine, because he was going to be the strategist to have that door open for his whole entire family to be saved. And so what if God is allowing you to be where you are right now, not for you to be angry and hold this bitterness? Just let it go and recognize that yes, you have a right to be angry. Yes, you have a right to be in pain. Yes, it hurts like you never felt before. But what if this is what God is using to push you ahead, to be the open door for the very people that have hurt you? Because that's the beauty of forgiveness. When Jesus Christ forgave us, it's not because we deserve to be forgiven or because we didn't do anything wrong. We were the ones that committed the crime. We were the ones that lied, that cheated. We were the ones that did everything that we were not supposed to do. But he, the innocent one, was the one that died on the cross and said, I will carry the burden of what everyone has done. They were the ones that were caught red-handed, but I am going to take their place. I am going to receive the guilt that they should be carrying, and in turn giving us life, giving us the beauty of grace. And so God is calling us to embody that same grace, that same mercy, that same forgiveness, that same right relinquished to be able to be an open door for someone else. And so that's just really what I felt. And God is, of course, still showing so much through the scripture, but I just wanted to share that with you all today. I love you, and be free. Be free to let go of the right to be angry, because the truth is, like I said, Joseph had a moment. He had a feeling. So it's okay to cry. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to have your moment. Have it. But after you have it, let it go. Just let go of the right to be angry, because Christ let it go for us. God had the right to be angry with humanity, and he decided to forgive us. And that's the same forgiveness that he's asking us to walk in day after day. Have your moment, but let it go, and let go of the right to hold anything against people. I hope this blessed y'all, and I'm really excited about tonight. Love you all.